Do you want to lose weight but struggle to stay committed to a meal plan because you constantly feel hungry? Does food provide you with comfort when you are bored, angry, lonely, or sad? If so, you are in the right place. My name is Kristen Jones, and I'm a life coach specializing in emotional eating and weight loss, and I'm also a lifelong emotional eater. I want to provide you with information, motivation, and support so you too can learn to manage your issues with food and develop a healthy relationship with yourself. Welcome to the Breakthrough Emotional Eating Podcast. Welcome to the Breakthrough Emotional Eating Podcast. My name is Kristen Jones, and thank you so much for joining me this week. As always, I am so excited about the podcast today and the topic that we're going to be talking about. So today we are going to be addressing how making change in your life, making a mental change in your life, how that can change the direction and the trajectory of your entire life. And so I have a very dear friend of mine, Christine Moy, who is joining us today. And she is also a former client of mine. And she's going to share a whole lot about her story and about how she has taken some adversity in her life and really made a huge change in her life, and now is seeking to take what she learned and share that with other people. So I think that's super cool because that's kind of what I did with my life. And so I always have a very, very strong, draw to people like that. So I know that Christine came into my life for a certain, and y'all are going to learn about that. So if you, welcome to the podcast. And I'm streaming live in my Facebook group. And if you are not a member of the Breakthrough Emotional Eating community, oh my goodness, what y'all waiting for? You want to come and you want to be a part of this community. It is absolutely amazing, the support, the love, the encouragement that people are sharing with each other in the group. It's phenomenal. And I'm so proud and I'm so honored to just be a part of it myself. So please go to www.facebook.com/groups/food breakthrough and join us in the group. It is, again, it's an amazing, amazing community. As you know, I always do a client shout out, and I want to this week talk about my client, Tina Pfister. And Tina is from San Antonio, Texas, and she is, talk about a Wonder Woman. She is a veteran, and she served in the Army during kind of the beginning of the 2000s. So kind of that post Desert Storm era of our country's history, and was in the military. And she has been able to, right now, she is just like, talk about having a full life. She has her daughter and her granddaughters living with her currently. And she is a full-time student. She is a full-time employee of the U.S. Army. And she has decided to completely address her issues with emotional eating and lose some weight. And she is absolutely like hitting it out of the park. It is so amazing. Every time I talk to her, it's not just the changes on the scale that she has, but it's her mindset, it's her understanding of how her brain works, and understanding that she is ultimately always in control of what she does and how she thinks and how she feels. And her life, it's only been a little less than 3 weeks, and she is just doing amazing. She's already lost 8 pounds. That was actually at the beginning of the week. Could be totally different by now. And is just doing an amazing, amazing job. And I'm so, so proud of her. And I'm just proud of her ability to be able to manage all the things that she has in her life, and becoming very good at time management. And that is something we can all work on, I know. But Tina, I am just so proud of you. So keep up the great work. And again, just continue to grow and get to know yourself even more. And I'm so honored to be on this journey with you. So again, thank you so much. So with that, let's jump to the topic of the podcast. So again, as I told you, I have a very special guest for you today. What you're going to be learning on today's podcast is the importance of seeking help when you need it, when you realize that you need help, seeking help, looking for some, whether it's a coach, whether it's an advisor, but also being your own best advocate, that you have to know yourself and you have to be your own best advocate. So that's the first thing we're going to learn about. Second thing we're going to learn about is change over time is so much more valuable and it's so much more lasting than that quick fix. And Christine's going to talk a lot about that and a lot about how our time together really went. And then finally, how she has taken a challenging situation in her life and has kind of flipped it on its ear, really, and now is taking what she had to deal with and now she's sharing what she's learned and taking that passion and that focus and helping other people. And I'm all about that as well. So with no further ado, Christine, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Hello.
Hello. Can you tell us a little bit, where are you calling from?
I am calling from Magog, Quebec, in the country.
That's right. And so if you can tell the listeners how, first off, how did you and I end up connecting? Because it's kind of an interesting story in a roundabout kind of way. So how did we end up connecting?
We ended up connecting. I was in the Netherlands with my mother, and I had already been through a whole process of somewhat losing control of my life and my health for various reasons, starting with panic attacks that started at age 38, which meant I ended up on an antidepressant to help me cope with that, and a management position. And then, unfortunately, 2 years later, I had a combination of suffering from I was doing well, and my GP wanted to lower the dose and get me off the antidepressant. But unfortunately, what wasn't talked about at all now and is only just now starting to come out more in mainstream is that it can be hellish for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. So a combination of that and two other major stressors in my life, and I had a breakdown and ended up being further medicated. And unfortunately, with that, again, because the doctors tend to not really be aware of how to properly taper someone off medication, and I was told to quit cold turkey, obviously couldn't handle it, and then was told that I would have to take medication for life. Mm-hmm. And for a long time, I believed that. Mm-hmm. And then my health, I ended up putting on my adult weight from age 20 until age 38 was 144. I could eat whatever I wanted. I never put on weight. I was reasonably active, and as a teen, I was a competitive swimmer. I was on a private swim club for a couple of years. And then as an adult, I worked in an office downtown Montreal for 19 years, and I would swim fairly regularly at the Y before I went to work. So, but over the years, I ended up going up from 144 to 196. Mm-hmm. And I ended up pre-diabetic and with a very severe sleep apnea. Mm-hmm. And then slowly at age 50, I started seeing holes in the story that I was being told about being ill and needing to have to take this medication for the rest of my life. That combined with the horrible effect it was having on my quality of life with the illness, etc. And just, I think, kind of coming, because when I put the weight on, I sort of hid myself. I didn't like my body. And when you're being told that there's something wrong with you and you're going to have to take medication, that really puts your self-esteem down too. And a combination of all those things, I sort of not totally lost myself, but I kind of lost a real sense of, it was instead of having a sense of pride and sureness about who I was, it was more, I fell into the mold of somebody who's has a mental illness. And mm-hmm. Slowly I started to realize that my genuine self started to resurface more when I was 50. And I think really the first move, even before the medication, was finally understanding mindfulness. And I read a book, what's it called? Michael Singer, The Untethered Soul. Yeah. And for some reason that just really clicked, and I understood how I could apply mindfulness, not in a way in sitting meditation, but as a how I live. So that was the beginning. And then with the very severe sleep apnea, I was diagnosed with that in 2015. But that doctor pretty much saved my life, because he said to me, he asked me the question, he saw the damage it was doing to me and the weight gain. And he asked me, do you really need to take this? And my answer at that point was yes, but that made me start doing my own research, looking into the truth about the medication, and I realized that probably I didn't. So I had when we met, I had gotten myself off one of the meds already on my own. Through information I found on surviving antidepressants. We're going to talk about that later. And so just by getting off one of the meds, my weight dropped from 196 to 184. But I was stuck at the 184 when I met you, and that's what happened. I was researching about the drugs, trying to figure out, I had 2 left to get off at that point. And one of them was also a drug. They all, you put weight on with any of the psych drugs, but these 2 were the worst. So I was trying to do research to figure out, why isn't it working? And it was also, I read books. I bought a book on HIIT. My daughter, who is a personal trainer and super model for fitness, she had suggested I use Nike apps, and there was just nothing was working. And I just realized, I was in the Netherlands, I wanted to move forward. I wasn't moving forward. So I said, I'm going to take this seriously. I'm going to find a personal trainer. So I started researching, and I found Dave Smith, a Canadian, I think you won the best personal trainer in Canada a couple of times. I wrote to him, and I was just very honest. The weight gain is related to psych meds. And he said, oh, I've got the perfect person for you. Just wait, I'll have to see if she can take you on. And that's how we met.
Yeah, no, that was amazing. And I remember our first conversation, and you were with your mom in the Netherlands. And I remember not necessarily knowing as much about, I didn't know nearly as much as I know now about medications and how much the medications, how much they had affected you. But I remember you telling me that, and it's something that stuck out so clearly, that you had, I think it was only a year, you had gained like 40 pounds it was like a year and a half or something like that, like something really dramatic. And I remember asking you, didn't your doctor think that was a little unusual? And you were like, yeah, well, they should have, but no one said anything to you about it.
Well, actually, they did. Do you want to know what my doctor said to me? She said to me, oh, but Christine, I don't think it looks that bad on you. The extra 50 pounds, some of my patients, they put on 100 pounds.
Oh, see, and that, yeah, right. And that was for you. And you and I had discussed that was just not where you wanted to, that was obviously not where you wanted to be. And one of the things, and so for those people listening, one of the things that, and I'll let Christine go a little bit more into this, but one of the things that we really want to emphasize is, as we talk about people coming off medications or coming off antidepressants, it's definitely something that, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, but it's definitely not something that you just kind of willy-nilly do on your own. There's definitely a process, and there's things that you have to go through. And I watched, as Christine went through this, and she did it in a very systematic way, but there were definitely times that were very, very challenging. And so it is absolutely not something that you just decide like, oh, I don't want to take my meds anymore, I'm just going to stop. That is not what we're advocating, and that's not what we're saying. And there'll be resources and information for those people who need that, and that Christine has provided for us. So we'll be able to give you a little bit more information about that. But I just wanted to make sure that it was known that we're not in any way advocating just stopping medication, but there's definitely a process. And Christine has done the legwork and the back, the back end work that you need to do and able to do something like this very, very slowly and very, very methodically. So tell everybody about, like, we worked together for a year, and you went in knowing that we were going to work together a year. Like, it was not like we never talked. I mean, in your mind, I remember you saying it was like, it'll be July of next year. And I remember you telling me, because you had set a goal, so you can tell everybody what that was, but you set a goal and you knew we were going to work together for a year. So can you tell a little bit about why why that year, why you thought that was so important?
Oh, part of it was because I had already went at the same time I was looking for a personal trainer. It was before I left here. I had stumbled upon, I can't even remember his name now, Rick Roll or something like that. He did a podcast, and his story was similar to mine in that he also was a competitive swimmer,
Mhm.
but had done better than me. He let his life just fall apart. I didn't have all the drugs and alcohol and stuff that he did, but he at 40 he was walking up the stairs and realized, oh my God. And now he's like the 26th strongest man in the world doing triathlon. That gave me the idea of triathlon.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. And so that's essentially what your kind of what your goal was when we started. There was that you had that kind of thing in your future that you had kind of set forth that like you wanted to do a triathlon.
Yeah, yeah, and also because I've never been somebody that needs a quick fix. So I knew, and I had tried on my own, so I knew it wasn't something that was going to happen overnight, anyways.
Right.
And
Right.
when you put on 50 pounds over a period of several years, you know it's not going to disappear like that.
Right, right. So tell everybody what, because I think the way you came into us working together with a lot of knowledge yourself. You definitely, you knew what you like to eat. You knew the foods that nourished your body. You definitely came to realize that. And I always remember, and I know you'll remember this. Christine would send me, I would ask to see pictures of her food, and she would. I'm telling you, these were the most gorgeous plates of food that I had ever seen. And they were so beautiful. She always had beautiful china too, but the food was so like it was eclectic. And you probably I would say at each meal you averaged at least 7 or 8 different things, because you'd have like a couple of radish, a couple of like watermelon radishes, and then you'd have spirulina sprinkled over everything, and you'd have lamb chops, and you'd have, and everything was grass fed, everything was organic, everything was super, super healthy. I remember you talking about your butter, and you would have the grass fed, I think it was grass fed butter, was that, because very, very pure. So tell us what you learned throughout the year that we worked together.
Yeah. Well, with you, first of all, I think what really worked is that Dave Smith was right on picking you, because I needed somebody who had a similar mindset and who wasn't going to put on a persona about and cheer me on in a false way. And your videos, they just made me laugh right off the start. You're here in your workout suit with your phone in your hand, and you gotta get rid of my phone. Sorry, right off. And
I am myself in those videos, that's for sure.
you're not putting on a persona, and I felt like I'm working out with my girlfriend in her bedrooms, and that made a connection. And yeah, and the meetings, and also with you, I think what helped was you seemed to get a good sense of where to push me and where not to push me. And if you tried something and it didn't motivate me or something, you've got a sense that maybe it wasn't necessary, and emphasize other things. So
Well,
yeah.
you were very driven with your exercise. I think exercise was never something that I really had to push with you, because you really made the decision. And I will never forget the day that you told me that you got the exercise bike that was attached down below your desk. And you were actually, as you were working, you were pedaling a bike. And I was trying to visualize what that would look like. But I thought that was the coolest thing. I thought, okay, she's really serious. Like, she's going to do her work and she's going to be pedaling that bike.
Well, I'm a freelance translator, so I'm working sitting all day, and I had researched standing desks, and it turns out that the movement is better than just
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so,
And with exercises, it was really good too, because naturally, I'm naturally drawn to swimming and running, because it's repetitive and it's a meditative, and that's what I know. But when I was doing your videos, it was all new. It was new movements and new muscles,
yeah.
and but there was some resistance at the beginning, like, because it was hard. It
Oh yeah,
wasn't.
I remember I can remember being on my front porch, and like you demoing something and me saying, oh wait, no, I need to do, like, we're both in like workout positions and you're halfway across the world. And I'm like, okay, put your arm up, you know, and we're laughing. And it's like, oh my gosh, that was really fun. But yeah, what I really enjoyed about working with you was that you, one, were so open to learning new things and being very open-minded, but you also, I didn't feel like there was a real issue for you motivation wise, because you knew that the more exercise and the better you ate and the better you took care of yourself, the better you were able to kind of put off the episodes that you would have as a result of coming off of the medications. And that really, I think, and that's why we had to go, that's why we went so slowly, was because we knew your body needed to, and I think it's true with anything, whether you're on medication or not, your body needs to get used to it and really settle in and not have it be this dramatic change. So
Yeah, and it was really, in my case, a question of really listening to my body. And I mean, because I was withdrawing when I was with you, so there were periods where I would have to have a week of not exercising because I was just, my body just needed rest. So
right. And there were times that I would message you and you'd say, I can't talk for a couple of days. Like, I just, like, you needed your space. You needed to sleep. I mean, there were days that you slept a majority of the day, and maybe you'd get up for 2 hours, eat something, and then go back to bed.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, it was very, very long. But then your triathlon, a pinnacle of our year together was your triathlon. So would you like to share with everybody? And I would love for you to share where you got to, like where your weight came to when you did your triathlon, and then how you performed, and then where you are now. So
Yeah. So we did the triathlon, and I remember the Friday before the triathlon, I was feeling quite ill because of the med withdrawal, and we had a quick check-in.
Mhm.
And I was thinking after, man, she must have been concerned about me, because the next day, the Saturday, I don't know if it was mind over matter, but the nausea and everything disappeared, and I had a blast. I had done a practice full triathlon here
Mhm.
just to make sure that I wasn't going to die. And when I did it, and I survived that. So then I said, okay, my goal, I know I'm not going to die. So my goal is to have a blast.
Mhm.
And it was just so much fun.
Yeah. And so you and I started together. You were 184 when you and I started together, and we just had come up with this recently. What weight were you when you got to the triathlon?
The triathlon, I think it was around I think I had maybe gotten down to about 162 by then.
I thought it was 157.
Yeah, maybe the final weight with you, I think, was 157. I
Yeah.
can't remember if that was a little bit. Yeah, maybe it was 157 then. Yeah.
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 And I remember you sending me pictures, and it was like I was looking at a totally different person. I mean, it was like you were in your wetsuit. Yeah, I think it was at the end. I think you and your daughter had taken a picture at the end, and it was you were in your little shorts, and I mean, the transformation was just amazing. But the joy and the just your energy was just so amazing. I mean, your energy was so amazing, because you had overcome so much to get to that. I mean, doing a triathlon in and of itself is a huge accomplishment, but considering what you had overcome to get to that point was just amazing.
Yeah, it was so much fun too. And
Yeah.
I just have a little story I want to add about taking your time. I would say we worked together for a year. I would say that it took about 6 months before I had done enough physical work on my body, that I was feeling the benefits so much that I actually wanted to get out there and do it. Before that, I think it was like when you have a good psychologist, if you have a good relationship connection with the person.
Mhm.
I think for me, I needed that for the first 6 months. I was doing it for me, yes, but also for you.
Right.
So
Right.
there was that motivation.
Mhm.
Whereas after 6 months, by that time, the benefits for my level of energy, the way I was looking, the mental clarity were so present at that point that that's when it would switch from I got to exercise to I get to exercise.
Right.
And I
Exactly.
remember having a short period where I couldn't exercise, and maybe I had too much work or something. And then I went off to the Netherlands to see my mom, and I went running for the first time in a month or so. And it was like my legs were just so happy to be doing this.
I remember that. I remember you telling me about that. And that was it, there were just so many cool milestones for you throughout that journey. But I really would like to for everybody to hear. So we stopped. This is more than a year ago. So we stopped more than a year ago. It was July of last year. And so here we are, 12, 14 months later. And what has happened? Where have you gone since then?
Well, my weight has continued to drop. I'm down to ranging a little between 145 and 150. So
So back to your weight of where you had been before you had been on the medication.
yeah, yeah, and it stabilized at about 157 for several months, and then in January I think it's a combination of factors. I think I'm understanding more and more that trying to keep your body in parasympathetic mode rather than sympathetic mode, calm, rest and digest instead of fight and flight,
Mhm.
really has benefits everywhere. Weight loss, focus, everything. So I was working on that, and I did a 30-day elimination diet just to eliminate all the foods that can cause problems for bodies, and then slowly reintroducing.
Mhm.
And that seemed to trigger something. I started losing more belly fat,
Mhm.
and my visceral fat levels started dropping. That was the last part to drop. The fat around the organs. So
Right.
yeah. So and it also made it so I'm more attuned to my body. So I can eat everything. I introduced everything back, but for example, coffee is an emotional food for me.
Mhm.
Coffee is like my friend. And before, it would be the emotional message that would trigger me to have a coffee. And now it's more my body. I'll have a third coffee and I'll have a sip, and my body, it doesn't taste so good.
Right.
And I'm more able to listen to that message
Mhm.
rather than an emotional need. So
Right.
that is, I think the combination of those factors help the weight can start going back down again. So
Yeah. So and so where have you decided kind of you've kind of shared with me what you want to kind of where you want to go in your kind of in your career, in your second life or your third life, or what you're going to be doing. So would you share with everybody where your life is headed as
yeah.
a result of us working together?
Well, as a result of working with you and having a daughter who's a personal trainer, so I've got two models now, I decided that it's something that I want to share
Mhm.
an experience. And I'm 60 next April, so I'm planning towards retirement. So my plan is I'm working on my nutrition coach certification,
Mhm.
and then I'm going to get my personal trainer certification. And I'm going to do this slowly. I don't want to rush into. I'm trying to build up a library of books on nutrition and mental health, and just try and specialize more in that direction. And also for women my age, because in my neighborhood, people who would see me going down to the lake to swim every night, and the triathlon, people were really motivated, because I think too many people think that at our age, 60,
Mhm.
uh, there's nothing more you can do, but it's so not true. And I'm really interested in the whole idea of not falling into that pattern that a lot of people just assume that aging means diabetes, means all these things, where it's not true. There are so many
Mhm.
things you can do. I'm very interested in learning more about epigenetics,
Mhm.
that there are environmental factors that will turn on and off your genes,
Mhm.
what you eat, sleep, exercise, over time, all those things can turn off a genetic code. Say a genetic code that would make you prone to depression or anxiety or whatever.
Mhm.
These things can be slowly changed. So, and I think a lot of people fall into victim mode, and they feel helpless. And I unfortunately think that that's kind of a message that doctors are giving you when they give you a pill for depression and tell you that's the only thing you can do.
Mhm.
Yes, they can be helpful, but there are other things, that there are other answers too.
Right.
And so my plan is to slowly, I work freelance translation, reduce clients, work part-time translation, and transition into. And I know that I'm really fortunate to have been able to afford a personal trainer. So my plan is to find, offer my services to someone who can't afford it on a volunteer.
Mhm. That is so amazing. That just makes me so happy. That is so awesome. And you're going to be such an incredible resource for people because I know how much I learned from you in the way of, you mentioned epigenetics and I was like, I'd never even heard that word before I met you. I mean, that was you introduced me to all of those things and introduced me to the effects of drug because I had clients, I had other clients myself at the time that were on antidepressants or anxiety meds, and you were sharing so much valuable information with me about how I could help them and the side effects and things like that that most people don't know. So I think that what you're going to do is going to just help so many people. And it's always there's something about being able to take what's happened to you and then look at it as being like what's been done for you, and like you were given your situation so then you could turn around and help other people. And it's the same way I feel about mine. So it's just
Yeah.
I think that's why we have such a connection as well, because I think we're both kind of in that same vein of taking something and making it a better thing and sharing what we know with other people.
Yeah.
So I just have been, I was so honored to work with you. I loved our year together, and it was really important to me that I wanted you to share that information with everyone, and really to be able to kind of share the information about, the whole that people need to ask questions about, about medications that they're being given and diagnosis that they're being given, and that they need, we need to be an advocate for ourselves. And that's one thing I really learned about you or learned from you, is that whole idea of advocacy, of self-advocacy, and not just taking it for what it's said. Like, you have to ask questions.
Yeah, you have to have questions.
Yeah. So,
And when
well,
you're working with a trainer, I think another thing is that actually it's a rule, an important rule for me in my life in general is be your own guru.
yep.
You have people ask for help, look for guides, but you take from them what works for you.
Right.
Because people sometimes they want it offered on a plate. This is exactly what I need to do, and this is exactly the result that I'm going to get. And then you get frustrated when it doesn't happen.
Right. Right.
You have to learn to listen to yourself and your own intuition and your own for sure we all need help and advice, but it's important that you make it your own and
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah.
Perfect. That is such a great way to end things. So, Christine, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. And I'm going to drop in the show notes, I'm going to drop some information that Christine has provided for me, some links to some websites that she feels will be applicable. And we'll definitely have, if you don't mind, you and I can talk a little bit later about having some contact information if anybody wants to connect with you and, maybe find out some more information about if they have some questions about medications and things like that, or working with you. All right. Well, thank you everybody for being a part of the podcast today. And Christine, thank you for coming and sharing your story with us. Again, if you're listening on the podcast and you are not a member of the Breakthrough Emotional Eating community, love to have you. So please come and join us again, www.facebook.com/groups/food breakthrough. And we will be back next week with another episode. Again, thank you so much for joining us, and have a wonderful rest of your day. We will talk to you all later. All right, let me go ahead.